Welcome to the Women Leaders Association podcast, where we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. Be sure to tune in each week to hear an empowering message from the world's top women executives, trailblazers, entrepreneurs, and all-around fierce female leaders. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland, and I will be taking you on a deep dive of each message to equip you with the principles, strategies, and tools you need to start crushing your goals, increasing your impact, creating work-life harmony, and did I mention have more fun? Because when you love what you do it better. The Women Leaders Association is the world's largest women executives association with over 30,000 women in executive and leadership positions who are committed to the development and advancement of women in the corporate arena. If you would like to get involved in a Women Leaders Association chapter, would enjoy daily podcasts, or you desire to become a part of the Women's Mastermind group near you, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com. Maggie Rivera drives the strategic alignment and talent development, advancement, retention, and goal setting for U.S. Bank. She serves as the president of the board of directors for the Hispanic Business Center and vice president of New Sunshine Properties. Maggie loves traveling, motorcycles, dancing, reading, and spending quality time with family and friends. Let's listen in as Maggie teaches us how we can silence self-doubt and widen our definition of what leadership should look like.
You are not smart enough. You can't do this. No one cares about you, and you do not deserve to be loved. Girl, they're going to find out you a fraud. You better enjoy your time here while it lasts, because it's almost over. Those are the thoughts that really plagued my mind for my formative years, so just about a few years ago. See, I grew up in extreme poverty. In fact, I was a homeless youth from the ages of 8 to 14. I lived in shelters where mold crawled up the walls and roaches swarmed, where feces and vomit plagued our communal toilets, where sexual predators roamed as we stood out and stood guard as our mothers took showers. Our daily outings was going to the grocery store, and my mom would distract the stock boy while I would steal fruit to eat. Or we'd go to a park and we'd find a place to put up our tent so we could have a place to sleep for that night when the shelters were full. I remember being in school, my stomach is growling, kind of like it is right now. I didn't eat breakfast, but my stomach would be growling. And I remember being taunted by the bullies out in the hallway that were making fun of me because I only owned 3 outfits and I had to wear one for the second time that week. And I'm trying really hard to focus on catching up on my math lessons because that was the 3rd school I attended that 3rd grade year. That was my life. At least it was my life until my grandmother, who was my angel, came in and saved me. She took custody of me at the young age of 74 years old. Could you imagine 74 years old adopting a teenage child? God bless her. But she adopted me. She brought me in. And for the first time in my life, I knew what security was and what safety was and what love was. And my grandmother used to always tell me, because I had a hard time assimilating into normal society. And she would always go, mija, and she'd grab me by my chin. She'd like to do that. She'd be, mija, you are better than no one, mija. But remember, mija, nobody is better than you. So make sure throughout life you look them dead in the eyes and you do not put your head down. So I tried to keep those words with me when I got my first grown-up job, my first big girl job. Right out of high school, I started as a part-time teller at a bank, which is really funny if you think about it, because I was a thief that sucked at math that ended up in banking. But I ended up in banking, and I've been doing this for about 22 years now. So, I remember my very first day of work. That's when I really understood what imposter syndrome was. And I would say that this is an extreme example and not how most people experience imposter syndrome. But I will say that most people do, in fact, actually experience it. In fact, we got a great report here from my friend here at the table. So Kelly's organization, KPMG, did the study, and they came out with some stats here that I'm going to share with you. So 65% of professionals today, men and women, experience imposter syndrome, but they don't know it's imposter syndrome. They just know what it feels like. And out of that, 75% of women have said that they felt it at some point throughout their careers. And it's typically early on in careers, they say between the ages of 25 and 34. Currently, 53% of those women are feeling it right now. Now, this one really hit home for me when I seen this. 50% of working moms feel like an imposter, not only at work, but also as home, as a mom, as they're being torn between the two. Now, what's really interesting is 85% of women, they won't talk about imposter syndrome at work or the way it feels because they don't want to be seen as incapable, right? Or that it's going to hurt them in their careers if someone finds out, right? That they have these feelings. And more importantly than that, less than 5% of companies today are actually talking about it. So what is this thing that we all have, right? What is this syndrome? It sounds so serious, right? So imposter syndrome actually refers to an internal experience of believing that you are not as competent as others perceive you to be. So I'm going to say that again. It's the feeling or believing that you are not as competent as others perceive you to be. So to put it simply, it's that feeling that you're a fraud, that people are going to figure out that you don't belong there, that you're faking it so you make it, right? And then you get to your status in life or your job in life just by pure dumb luck. And I don't know about you. Has anyone else, I'm asking you to be vulnerable. Have you ever felt that way at any time in your career? That's great. My hand's up right now because I feel like one right now, right? I work in banking and I'm up here trying to present myself as some pseudo expert on imposter syndrome, right? I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose anyone here with the syndrome. But what I can do is just share my experiences coupled with some research and some things that we do at US Bank and how we can address this. And I think that it's really important that when we think about this, we think about how males experience it versus females, right? So male leadership models range from, let's see, we got, oops, just kidding. All right, there we go. Male leadership models, right? They have a large latitude of how they can show up in the workplace, right? You got our CEO over here at Microsoft, Steve Ballmer, who's screaming at people all the time. I'm not sure if you ever see him on TV. He's constantly yelling, right? You have Google's Sundar Pichai, who's very soft-spoken, and he's very kind of even-keeled, right, when he communicates. You have the sharp suits like French President Emmanuel Macron to hoodies and jeans like Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg. Now, what this means is that we give far more latitude to a number of ways for men to show up at work, but not necessarily women. Leaders with underrepresented identities, when they find themselves walking this tightrope of bias, right, and their approach to self-expression and leadership styles, they have to do it with strategic intention. You know, we see that a lot with women. You have to wear the certain colors. You can't be too bright. Don't be too short. But don't be too tight, right? There's all these rules. Like, I'm Latina. I can't wear my big hoop earrings. It's not professional. I wear them anyway. So let's talk about that. What does, professional presence even mean? Right? What do you think when you think of presidential? Right? When 46 out of 46 of American presidents were all men and 45 of them were white, what do you think when you see presidential? So what do we think when we see executive presence? What does that mean for us women? Right? A history of think male, think leader has been a pervasive barrier to accepting what women are perfectly capable of doing, even if we express self-doubt or hesitation. I think what we need to do is widen the definition of leadership and the words that we use to describe leadership versus have to fall into these forms.
What? Okay, we're going to stop right there. Maggie has already opened a whole suitcase full of goodness, and we're going to start unpacking that right now. I don't know about you, but I love her grandmother. And now I will always and forevermore hear in my head, just, not with the same amazing accent, you are better than no one, and no one is better than you. This is such a simple, yet such a powerful lesson that we as leaders need to learn. And not only that, but a lesson that we need to be intentionally passing down to the next generation. I mean, think of all that we are exposed to these days with social media, YouTube, and whatever else there is. If we are not being intentional to fill our minds with value, you can be dang sure the world will offer up every single distraction to cause you to devalue yourself. One of my greatest mentors is John Maxwell, who is the #1 leadership expert in the world. And he is constantly talking about one of the key characteristics of a great leader is to value people and to know that all people have value, no matter the upbringing, no matter what school they attended, no matter their race or religious preferences or political views. Yeah, every single person has value, even the ones we don't agree with and find it challenging to be around. The trouble is, most people have spent their entire life attending the school of hard knocks and have never properly formed a sense of worth. I mean, no wonder those statistics that Maggie read are true. 75% of women have experienced imposter syndrome. 50% of working moms feel it both at work and at home. And 85% of people won't even talk about it, which it just totally blew my mind. Suppression leads to depression, ladies, every single time. We got to stop tucking these issues into our shame closet and hoping that if we ignore it, it will just go away. Because, spoiler alert, any area where you are avoiding dealing with shame is going to continue to deal with you on all the levels. I could spend a whole episode on this one topic, but we'll save it for another day. But when Maggie asked the audience to raise their hand if they had ever experienced imposter syndrome, I literally raised both of my arms up above my head. And I kind of feel like if that didn't nudge you to raise your hand, you lie about other things too. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just being real. Imposter syndrome is not some shame taboo word to be swept under the rug. No. Put the broom away and go grab your leaf blower and get it out of here. The fastest way to silence self-doubt is not with these hushed tones and whispers. It's time to get loud about it. Know you're not alone. And know that this feeling is not forever. I digress. But that rabbit was too important not to chase for a minute. When Maggie went on to say we needed to widen the definition of leadership, and she referenced the broader scope of which men are accepted in terms of being a leader, I started to get squirmy in my seat. Sure, there was this part of me that wanted to stand up and yell, "Girl power!" But the real squirminess was coming from a place of sadness. I learned a long time ago from doing some intense personal development work with my coach that more often than not, my anger response was actually a front manifested by feeling scared and a need to protect myself. And as I explored this revelation, I began to see that areas in my life that I had been hurt or saddened were left unhealed. Perhaps I had shoved them in the shame closet. See, I knew that was going to be a relevant rabbit to chase. I was squirmy and sad because I began to think of all the opportunities that I had to widen the definition of leadership within my own life. The opportunities that I refused because of doubt and feelings of inadequacy and that not good enoughness. I know that's not actually a word, but I kind of feel it should be. It was like when Maggie said, we need to widen the definition of leadership. She was giving me permission to say yes, where I had previously said no. Ladies, I am super intentional to surround myself with other like-missioned, ambitious women who get it. But at the end of the day, we all have to learn how to show up for ourselves. If you missed last week's episode on envisioning yourself as a leader, go back and give it a listen. We have to see it first if we're ever going to achieve it. Whatever it is you're looking to build in this life, you have to believe it first. You build out what you believe in. And where there is doubt, there will always be delay. So if you're not where you want to be right now, it's time to have an honest conversation about the doubts that you're holding on to. You can't be shoving those in the shame closet either. Nope, let's get them out. Let's talk about it. Let's heal from it so we can move forward into living our max potential life. And if you're like, well, gosh, Julianne, that sounds great in theory, but I wouldn't even know where to begin. I got you covered with a very simple exercise. Now I need you to note, I said simple, not easy. You're going to have to get real with yourself, and that can be uncomfortable. Girl, you can do hard things. I know that for a fact because you pressed play on today's episode, which means you're ready for more out of life, which means you're probably fed up with the stuff that's kind of been holding you back and keeping you stuck. So I know you can do hard things. You've already done hard things. And here you are today. So here's the exercise, okay? Now, if you're driving, hands at 10 at 2, and do this exercise when you get home. On a piece of paper, I want you to draw out 3 columns. Column 1 says at the top, where I am currently. Then hop over to column number 3, which says, where I desire to be. And in the middle column, it says, what's standing in the way. Now, these examples don't necessarily have to be negative. Perhaps what is standing in the way from you becoming the top website designer is not having the right computer software. That's not you being negative. Okay, that's just you being real, which is important. You need to be speaking from a place of reality. This middle column is going to become your roadmap for overcoming any obstacle, be it in your thoughts or in the reality. Those obstacles that are standing in your way. And this roadmap is going to show you exactly what you need to do to get from where you are now to where you desire to be. Every time I have my clients do this, they have a huge aha moment because for the first time, they are seeing all of that mess that has been living rent-free in their mind. They're seeing it on paper. And on paper, you can form a plan because on paper, you deal with what's on the paper. You don't go in this 30-minute downward spiral of emotional and mental instability where because you don't have the right computer software, you'll never amount to anything. No one will ever love you and you will die alone with all of your cats. Okay, I hope you don't spiral to those extremes, but no judgment from me if you have, because I have too. And I fully believe we can accept Maggie's commission to widen the definition of leadership. You have to ask yourself, I'm asking you, are you willing? Will you join me? Will you share this message with a friend? Because together we can create a new sound of leadership. One that stands out in this world full of noise. I love this conversation. It is so relevant and applicable no matter where you are in your leadership journey. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, be sure to rate, review, and share the goodness with a friend. And if you are wanting more, you gotta check out our Women Leaders membership. You get full access to the entire speech of every speaker you will hear from on this show. Plus, learn how you can join our masterminds and referral network, and tons of other resources to equip and empower you for more. Simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com. Again, womenleaderspodcast.com. Because here at Women Leaders Association, we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. That's all for today, my friends. Bye for now.